Hi everyone, a big warm welcome to the Bliss and Thrive podcast. It's your host, Carys here. And today we are joined by the lovely Julie Court. And Julie is a menopause coach. So I thought it would be really beneficial to all you guys listening. And I want to know all this information as well. And I know a lot of my clients do, to dive more into the menopause, because whether you're like in a perimenopausal state, and we'll chat about that, or you're heading towards menopause, or you're nowhere near any of that, it's still really good to like arm ourselves for the future, because as women, we go through so blooming much. So a big warm welcome, Julie. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Carys. Thanks for inviting me on and for the lovely welcome.
Yay, I'm so happy to have you here. Right. So I think let's get to know you a little bit first and find out a bit more about you. So how did you become a menopause coach, and what exactly is a menopause coach?
Okay. So, God, where do I start really? So my background is actually in social care. And that was what I did up until I had my daughter 9 years ago. I was in a very fortunate position then to be able to become a stay-at-home mum. Completely turned my life upside down at that point. And to be honest, I didn't really have any interest in nutrition. Menopause wasn't on my radar, any of that.
How old were you when you had your daughter? Was it a daughter you had?
My daughter, yeah. So I was, God, I must have been 31.
Okay, yeah.
When I had her. So I, like I say, became a stay-at-home mum, and I couldn't go to any of my exercise classes that I wanted to go to anymore. So I took up running because it was the only way to fit in life around a baby. And it was that really that started me off exploring a little bit more about nutrition and wanting to know how I can fuel my body. And then a bit more when it came to weaning as well, because I didn't want to get shop bought, not knowing what was in those pouches and those jars, and wanted to make it all myself. So I spent a hell of a lot of time on Google trying to find out what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, and found so much conflicting information, so much misinformation, that's really where I decided to take myself off, retrain and learn more about it so that I could then help others and pass that information on. So at that point, I was really only focusing on, although I could work across the board, I was really primarily focusing on helping women with their weight management. For me, I struggled with my weight in my younger years. So it was kind of a natural kind of role for me to take up. But in terms of when I niched into menopause, that only really came later on when a friend of mine asked me, what did I know about menopause? And the long and short of it was I didn't know anything about it at all. So took myself off, did some more training. And at that time, it was more about the nutrition side of it. It was later that I went off and learned more about HRT as well. And that was it. I was down that rabbit hole then, and I completely niched into menopause. And it was then that I actually realised that I'd probably been perimenopausal myself for quite a few years by then.
So how old do you think you were when you became perimenopausal?
So I would have been, I think, around about 38, something like that.
It's so interesting, because I think for a lot of people in their 30s, it's like not even on their radar.
Yeah.
So for the listeners, can you just explain what perimenopause actually is?
So perimenopause is the years leading up to menopause. So the menopause itself is just one day in time. It's the day that you've gone 12 consecutive months without a period. Right. Everything after that is postmenopause.
Oh, really? Actually didn't know that. Okay, cool. That's good to know.
Yeah. So most of the time when people were talking about their symptoms, they're actually talking about perimenopause most of the time.
Right. And when you're kind of 38, like you were, like, what are the first things that you start to experience? What made you go, oh, actually, I think I've been in perimenopause for a while?
So I was training for a marathon then as well. And my periods went quite erratic. I think it was very easy for medical professionals to try and go, oh, put it down to you doing all this training. But they were closer together, sometimes further apart. Sometimes I might have lots of flooding, sometimes lots of spotting, or be really scant. And I actually went off and I had quite invasive hysteroscopy at that time, which came back clear, but there was no further investigation into that. It was just, oh, you've got dysfunctional periods. And that was the end of that. There was nothing more of it. But then what was it? I also got some really breast tenderness. So the only way I could probably describe it was if you've ever breastfed, when you give up breastfeeding and how ballooned your boobs feel then. That's what I was getting. And I was going to the doctors about it, but no one was really joining the dots. And I also got a skin condition as well at the same time. I developed rosacea. And one of the doctors had said, oh, this is like an older woman's complaint. It's not typical for your age. But no one had ever kind of joined all those dots. And I think once I was in that position and able to look back, it was kind of like, oh yeah, it's obvious. These are all kind of really common complaints of perimenopause and menopause. I think, and actually there's so many symptoms. That's the thing.
Yeah, and I'd love to go through some more of them as well. But I just wanted to touch on, I think that's a really useful thing to highlight for people. It's like you go to the doctor with one thing, then you'll go to the doctor with another thing, and often you'll see a different doctor, or they're just just focusing on treating that one thing, and they don't link things together, and they don't dive deeper into why are you having that problem. So I think you've got to keep pushing them, haven't you? I've got a client at the moment who's having this problem of, she's going to the doctors and they're just giving her a pill for her complaint, and she wants to know, the pill's great, taking away the pain, but why is this happening? What? Yeah, exactly. I want to know what's actually going on underneath, and you had to do your own detective work by the sounds of things.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of women do, particularly if they think they're perimenopausal or menopausal. I mean, it is getting better now, but it is still quite a bit of a battle sometimes, depending on the doctor that you get to see. And that's why I give all of my clients, we go through a screening form of all the different symptoms that you might have. And if you're going to your doctor, it's good to take that with you, because then it gives you something concrete to take and go, actually, look, I've got all of these different things going on.
What other symptoms are on that list then?
Gosh, it's so far ranging. You could be anywhere on it. So things like vertigo, dry eyes, dry mouth, vaginal dryness, changes in your bowel habits, gastrointestinal problems. So people tend to think just hot flushes, night sweats, but a brain fog, that's probably the worst of it, because a lot of women at this age, they're in maybe the peak of their careers, and not being able to find your words, it really affects confidence.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, isn't it? Your confidence being affected through your body changing, and then things like brain fog and not being able to function the same way that you used to, and you can't figure out why, and just that kind of feeling of, I don't quite feel myself and I can't figure it out. So carry on with your story then. So you were running your marathons, your periods were kind of all over the place, and you maybe I'm perimenopausal. And at this point you were learning about nutrition so at the time
that was happening, I was more about learning about nutrition. And I also put it down to the running. I was just like, do you know what? It's obviously a lot more training than I've been doing before. It must just be that.
Yeah.
And we moved house. So we moved home, and then my symptoms did pick up a lot more. I started getting the night sweats. I was getting the brain fog, hot flushes. And for me, that was also the time that I was starting to present workshops to the public about nutrition for menopause. And, you're meeting all these new people because you've moved home, and you want to make a good impression, but you're breaking out in top of the toe sweats. Or, we're trying to present a workshop, and you're trying to find your words, then
at least they're all people there who are going through the same thing. And you
exactly. And I think
this is what it looks like.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think that's what saved me, because I was okay, at least they know I'm on their level. I'm not someone that's just gone off and done this training. It's like, look at me, I'm here. I'm with you on this. Yeah.
So when you're going through that phase, if you could go back in time and like tell yourself, okay, you're going to look out for these symptoms. You're going to, if you start feeling a bit different and your periods start to change, etc., what would you do anything differently to help yourself through the journey? Like, what do you tell your clients?
So for me at that particular time, my diet was pretty good by then anyway, but I was able to go, okay, right, I'm having this symptom. Let's do a little bit more of this, let's incorporate a little bit more oily fish or, that kind of thing. But what I tend to find with my clients that come to me is that they haven't got that basic right, like the foundation of eating right. People might come to me with bags full of supplements that they're taking. But actually, when we talk about what they're eating, it's like, well, I don't eat breakfast. I might have a few nuts that gets me through to dinner. And then, oh, I'm so tired, I can't be bothered to cook. So I'll just pick something up and we'll just have that. When you hone it all down, if you can get the fundamentals right of your diet, just eating 3 balanced meals a day, drinking enough water, keeping alcohol to, a minimum, or at least having kind of 2 or 3 days a week clear without it. And, things like caffeine, keeping your caffeine just to the morning can have a dramatic difference to your hot flushes and how well you sleep at night.
Oh, really? That's a great little tip there. And it's probably those things that you're like, oh, I know I should like do something about that. But, just to hear it from a professional, like that will help with your hot flushes and help you have a more restful night.
But that's the thing with a lot of the work is that all of us essentially do know what we should be doing.
Yeah, we do.
But we don't.
Yeah.
And it's how you get to doing that's kind of where the trick is.
Yeah. And I think what happens then if someone comes to you and they're experiencing all these symptoms and they're like you and they've already got a fairly decent diet, what's the next level? So say someone's listened to this, they're like, yeah, well, I've been listening to Carys for a while. I'm good at nailing the basics. I can do it. But I really want to dive into like, are there any like extra things I can be doing to help myself, or what should I be, really focusing on?
Honestly, if you're open to the idea of HRT, then I would really explore that side of it.
Let's dive into that then. So let's talk about HRT. First of all, what exactly is it? What's the stigma around it? And what's the new research as well?
So HRT is hormone replacement therapy. Many women are scared of it because of a report that came out years ago now about breast cancer.
Yeah.
But actually, a lot of that was misinformed. It was misreported, and the study that it was done on was flawed. The whole study was flawed. So it was old style hormone replacement therapy that's not used now. There's a really good infographic that you can look at, actually. It's from, I think, Women's Health Concern that highlights the different lifestyle changes versus HRT as to your risk of getting breast cancer.
Yeah.
I think per 1,000 of the population, I think it's something like you get, whatever the number is, of people getting breast cancer, just as a standard. And then by taking HRT, there'll be an additional 4. But that is the same amount as people taking the pill.
Right.
But no one ever questions, we all just take the pill.
And in the media, it's probably been blown up. I think that's a really good point of like, you've got to weigh out the benefits of different things, of like how your life quality, et cetera, et cetera. And I think you can kind of relate this all now to COVID as well, wherever people stand with it. Like, the benefits of us all staying in our house and, not going out into the fresh air and not breathing fresh air. Yeah, okay, you might not get COVID, but the other health implications and mental health implications of that as well. So I think you've got to look at things on a moving scale. And it does, obviously, with this HRT study, sounds like it was shit, basically. It then got picked up by the media and blown out of proportion. And now all that everyone can remember is, if I take HRT, I'm going to get breast cancer. Because it's simple to remember.
Absolutely.
Okay,
and
so
actually,
you would recommend it?
I take it myself.
Yeah.
So I took it because of I'm perimenopausal now, so I'm coming up to 42 next month.
Wow.
My decision to take it, which kind of comes about from a lot of the women that come to me, actually why they even start working with me, is not because of how shit they're feeling themselves, but because of how they hear themselves talking to their kids, talking to their partner, that kind of meno rage that you get where you just can't, like, and that's why I went online over COVID, obviously when we were all into lockdown, and I was expecting work to go really quiet, but it actually got busier. And I think that's because we're all under one roof having to deal with each other. And there was no like, oh God, I can't escape from this.
Yeah.
So that side of it really helps really quickly. And
I get that's like a shining light for people who are feeling that. Like,
gosh, yeah. And I think just to feel a bit more yourself, it gets you in that position where maybe you're able to tackle your weight or other aspects of your life. Because when you're feeling that low, it's hard to pull yourself out of that hole, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it just gets you started. But also for me, long-term health. So HRT offers protection against cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, dementia. And being this age, I want to protect myself. And there's no increased risks when you start taking HRT under 50.
So it's like a no-brainer then, really. Yeah,
and you get the most benefit. The sooner you start taking it, the more benefit you get.
And will every woman be offered it?
I don't think if you go to your doctors, some doctors are still pretty reluctant to offer it to women, or even identify that maybe you're perimenopausal. So to a certain extent, you do need to make that appointment kind of armed and ready and like go in with your kind of evidence that this is what you want. And of course, there's all different types of HRT. So if the style of HRT that you're taking doesn't work for you, there's always something else you can try. And that's something else that happens is that, women might start taking it. It takes quite a few months to get it right. You'll have a review after 3 months. And if it's not working for you, you can increase your dose, you can decrease your dose, you can change the method in which you do it. So there's lots of, don't give up, I would say, is if you want to pursue that route, don't give up on it. You do need to keep tweaking it to get it right.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, you will find something that will help you. And it's the same, like if you ever been on the contraceptive pill or whatever, sometimes the first one is not the one for you and you have to keep tweaking and changing and seeing what's right for you. So I think that's kind of, hopefully that's going to reassure anyone that was still under the impression that it was like, risky to take HRT. And if you're feeling at your wit's end, like, I really need something, I need some help. So outside of HRT then, is there anything else that you recommend? Any supplements or certain food groups? Or
there are certain supplements you could take, but I would much rather get people to a good point with their diet first before saying you could take this, you can take that. So I would say always go diet route first.
So it's so funny because I obviously in my programs and on this podcast, I talk about nailing the basics with nutrition all the time. And we don't deviate from that. We're not doing any new fancy nutrition protocols and stuff. So like having you on now and listening to it from a different perspective, and it's the same advice. Like if you want long-term health, if you want mental clarity, an energized body, everything working optimally, you just look at your diet first and nail the basics. And I have an episode I recorded the other day, just reminding everyone what the basics are. So that will be coming out soon. Let's just do a checklist and just make sure we are eating 80% whole foods and we're hydrated.
And you know what the thing is? It's not sexy, is it?
No, it's not.
People don't want to hear it, and they're like, oh.
And I don't want to. It's hard for companies to make money off telling people to eat vegetables.
Yeah,
so we know we need to grind that vegetable into a powder and package it up in a green package, and then we can make money off it.
Yeah,
It's true. It's like you have all those things in your supermarket. It doesn't have to be more expensive than junk food at all. Actually, our shop's always cheaper when we don't get any like processed snacks. So I think it's like somewhere everyone can start. So it's great to hear that it's for everybody, and it's kind of like a baseline. We have to get there for everyone. So,
but it's how you get there. I mean, we were all probably there at some point, like not being able to cook. I mean, I left home. I think I could only cook a roast dinner.
yeah, I could do a stir fry. I remember that's all I could do is a stir fry.
Yeah, that was my vegetable component, a bit, a little bit on the roast for the week.
Yeah.
So I had to like learn to cook. It was, and actually that kind of took me off, I suppose, to a certain extent on my kind of style of like behavior change coaching.
Yeah.
Because I think it was Jamie Oliver's cookbooks, right? So when he was first doing his, and learning to put herbs, and things like that in food, it kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, like home cooked food can actually taste really nice.
Yeah.
And then that kind of makes you want to cook more. And that's kind of where my behavior change coaching came from, because you don't have to try hard. Like when it's something you want to do,
get excited about
it's easy.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like chocolate, right? So if you want a bar, you don't have to like coach yourself to have a bar of chocolate. You just do it because you want to do it.
Yeah.
Or like, when you got your mobile phone for the first time, you never put it down.
Because new and exciting.
Yeah, you just want to do it. So that's kind of how I work with my clients. And actually it was really nice when I found out there's a little bit of science behind it now. There was a book that came out, I'm trying to think what it's called now, Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. And all of his research was based on this kind of that we change through feeling good about ourselves. So I was like, fantastic, like there's some evidence behind what I'm doing, and it really kind of, makes you kind of keep going with that.
So feeling excited and feeling empowered by all your new decisions and that's what you see when someone goes on a health journey or health and fitness journey. The successful people are the ones who like go really into it, and then they're like, oh yeah, and then I started listening to this podcast, and I've tried this recipe, and I found this, and I bought myself a NutriBullet, and they're like just so excited by the journey, and like but then it is maintaining it past the excitement stage, which is the habit building stage.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where like we start really, really small with the changes that we make. So my ladies that I'm working with, they know exactly what it is that's working for them. So, it might be, right, take one lady I've been working with quite recently, right? So she was like, I've never been able to sleep through the night. I'm waking up 4 times a night on the 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I want the toilet. I can't go back to sleep. I'm getting hot. And we went through her diet, and we find a place that ladies want to start, what they're motivated to change. So it's and something that's easy for them to do. And it might be that we rein that right back into something really small. So it might only be something they do like once a week to make it attainable, but also so they can see the difference that one thing makes. So when we dug a bit deeper, this lady was drinking caffeine all day. So she was like, before she goes to bed, she has a cup of tea, and a bar of chocolate. She was like, no, but that's what I do. So I was like, okay, well, if we can like rein that back, just do it until have your drinks, your chocolate, but stop come 12 o'clock. I'm never going to be able to do that. I've been doing it like this all my life. Okay, well, let's just pick 1 or 2 days a week for you to try that and see how that feels. So she's like, great, I'm going to go and do that on a Thursday and Friday. So when I saw her again in the 3 weeks time and was like, how's that going? She was like, oh my God, I did that caffeine thing on a Thursday and Friday, and I started sleeping through the night.
Yeah.
So
and
it's
like a miracle. It's like, and the thing is, not like that. I'm sure that woman is intelligent, and she knows that like there's caffeine in tea and there's caffeine in chocolate, but you don't want to look for the answer that like takes away the thing you love. You want there to be another, is there not like a supplement I could take, or essential oil I can put on or something? And there's always a simple answer. So it's good to like anyone who's listening now, like you can deep dive into your food diary and try and be a little bit of a detective and be like, okay, what can I optimize? What do I think I can change? I always ask people like, let's start with one change, and what's your instinct telling you? Is that like one thing, like exactly what you do, really? Like, what's your instinct telling you? Like, okay, that's the thing that's holding me back from getting where I want to be. Because we know We know.
Yeah, essentially, it's just getting you in that position to do it, but feeling the difference on the other side. I think it's the feeling bit of it. So when you feel like, oh my God, I feel amazing because I'm sleeping through the night again, I can think clearly, I can operate better at work. And it's like, oh, well, of course I'm going to do that because that's better than the tea. It's
and it is making it a reward, make it worth it. I love that. Julie, it's been so cool to chat to you and just hear a little bit about your journey and like how you work, and to learn a bit more about menopause and HRT as well. It's really interesting. And I've got you booked in to come into the membership as well.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So anyone doesn't know, the Sweat It Squad membership we have guest experts come in each month. And so Julie's going to come in as a guest expert for a Q&A. So I'll pop the details to that underneath in the show notes. But if anyone wants to find out more about you, you put up really interesting posts and stuff on Instagram. So do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Julie_Court_nutrition. But I know, it's like when you say it out loud, it's like, oh my God, what a mouthful. But it's probably easier just to remember juliecourtnutrition.com, and then you can find your way there from our website. But I do one-to-one coaching for women who want to manage their symptoms and weight management through dietary and lifestyle changes. I do menopause retreats in and around Colchester, and corporate workshops as well. So
so Julie's
wants to get in touch
in Colchester, which is my hometown where I grew up. In Colchester, so
world.
Yeah, we probably have some listeners from there. So if anyone wants to do some face-to-face stuff with Julie, that's awesome. I'll put all her details in the description of the show as well, so you can just click on it easily. But thank you so much, my love. It's been amazing.
No, you're welcome. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.